All right, we're here again with another vendor spotlight, and I am joined today by Andrew Martin from 360 Heating and Cooling. Andrew and I have done a ton of business together. He's who I personally use for my personal properties, my investment properties, and everything else. So, Andrew, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are, your business?
So I'm the owner of 360 Heating and Cooling. We do HVAC and mechanical work here in the greater Cleveland area. Really busy lately the past few months with heating calls. We actually have had quite a few air conditioning replacements as well.
During the winter?
Yeah.
Why are people replacing their air conditioner in the winter?
Because it failed last year at the end, and I guess they're just getting ready. They want to.
Yeah, spring is coming now, right?
Spring, yeah.
Wow. So. Now, how are you able to do that? Because I know a lot of times with inspections that you can't have the air conditioning checked in the wintertime because, they can't compare it. So if you're installing an air conditioner while it's still, what is it outside today, 30 degrees or something, how do you do that?
Normally to charge that, there comes a preset refrigerant charge in the actual condensing unit, which is outside.
Okay.
And that's usually good for about 10 to 15 feet of that copper tubing, which is we call in our business a line set. Then, if we install it in the winter, we'll, come back and check the superheat and subcooling, which are some indicators of the functioning of the air conditioner, when it gets hot out, just to double check the charge is right.
Awesome. So it's been a crazy winter. It's been hot and cold and hot and cold, and I'm sure that doesn't do really good things for people's furnaces. So what do you think most of your calls are on right now?
I'd say no heat, no hot water. We got a lot of calls for both of those.
Really? And when it comes to furnaces, is there anything that if people just did this, it would stop breaking on them, or it wouldn't break, or it would last longer?
I'd say probably if you have just a furnace, you should have a HVAC contractor do what we call a tune-up, just check everything over. They change a filter, clean flame sensor, check your igniter. We just have a long checklist of everything that we can check to make sure that you're not stranded on the coldest night of the year.
Right, because that's always when it happens, right? Is on the coldest night, you end up with no heat. All right, so I'm going to ask for everybody, because I know probably everybody in the U.S. and probably beyond don't do this enough. How important is it to actually change your filters?
It's very important. Very important. I would say it's probably like you're trying to breathe through a wet, shirt or a wet towel.
Oh, wow.
Are you going to breathe easy? No. And that's your furnace is struggling. That's putting, strain on the fan, the actual blower motor of it, as well as, overheating everything.
Wow. So how often am I supposed to change it?
Depends on how dirty you are. Depends. Yeah, it all depends. Depends on what type of filter you have. If you have a 1-inch filter, you need to change that more. But they have some better filters out there that you might need to change, once every 6 months, once every year. But a general 1-inch filter, anywhere from 1 to 3 months.
Oh, wow. That's pretty quick. Yeah. Wow. Is there any time, is it worse in the winter or worse in the summer? Or is it just kind of the same?
No, it's kind of the same. It all depends, too, if you have pets, kids, different stuff like that, or kids dropping stuff down the return registers, or dog hair, cat hair, just general dirt that gets plugged in there.
Yeah. Awesome. So I have a 16-unit building that I'm working on with one of my investors, and it does have, what do you call those units when they're mounted in the wall?
Like a through-the-wall P-TAC.
Is that what it is, a through-the-wall? Okay, so the units each have a through-the-wall, but they're 2 stories. So I doubt that window unit or through-the-wall unit's actually cooling the upstairs. So they're considering putting central air in the entire unit. It's kind of a random question, and they are thinking about putting the central air in. The problem is there's really no area in front to put the condenser. So we're like, okay, maybe on the roofs above these garages, they could do it, but they also want to make this a really cool area. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. I think it should be done. It's a luxurious 2-story, 3-bed, 1.5 bath townhome type of building. But what are their options? If they don't want to put it here because it's too big, it's going to take up that front space. And can they put it on the roof? How much space is it going to take up?
You can put it on the roof, or you can put it on if you get you can get a side discharge condensing unit, and you can actually mount it on a bracket on a wall, whether on the side of the building, the back of the building.
Oh, you can mount it on the wall?
Yeah.
Instead of just leaving it on the ground?
Yep. You can mount it on the wall. You can.
Like, how high up the wall could you go?
You can go to the top if you want.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that affect its performance or anything?
No. No, they just have specific clearances on the instruction sheet. So many inches from the left, right, top, bottom, back, right, and as long as you meet those clearances, it'll function just fine.
No way. Are you going to charge me like $1 million extra to mount it on the wall?
Yes. No, there's a bracket. It comes with a couple $100 extra, and it takes a little bit of time to get it up there. The side discharge ones are a little bit more expensive for the condenser. We have, and people do mount like a regular size condenser, just a regular. But if you're talking multiple units, not just one or two, you should probably go with, the side discharge, a slim one.
That's awesome. And I'll tell you what, I know that investor's going to love hearing that just because it's a different option. I didn't know you could do that. So when I walk these units and, we'll see old furnaces, and sometimes they're super old. Sometimes they're, just a little bit old. If I'm walking through and it's a standard, let's just say it's like a duplex, just a standard duplex, each unit's maybe, 1,000 square feet or so, and both the furnaces are older, what should I, as an investor, expect that replacement cost to be?
It would all depend on if it's a high efficiency furnace, is it 90+%?
Like which one I choose? Which one you're replacing it with. Is it going to a chimney, which we call that at 80% or 80+%? That'll go directly into the chimney. Anything you see that's venting into like a PVC pipe, like almost looks like a drain pipe, that's venting out the side of the wall, back of the house, something like that. That's a 90+%. That's a higher efficiency. So it's better if it's vented out of a pipe than if it's vented into the chimney?
You have a better or higher efficiency furnace.
That's cool. And the higher efficiency then would likely cost more money.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say best case scenario, I just want to spend the least amount of money, but I want my tenants to be warm. What am I looking at? And we'll say it's venting into the chimney.
Venting into the chimney? Okay. Yeah, you're looking probably anywhere between the size of the property between $2,000 and $2,800 for a new furnace.
Okay, and that's installed, or that's just the cost of the furnace? Oh, that's great. All right, that's awesome. And now what if I wanted to add AC to that? How would you do that? I know it's very generic, and I'm putting you on the spot here. Like, how do you assess this? So we're just going like 1,000 square foot. Furnace is already there. We just want to add the AC.
So you have what's called an air conditioning coil. We call it AC coil. It goes on top of the furnace, and you'll have like 2 copper refrigerant lines coming out of it. That'll go to a condensing unit, which will be outside or on the side of the building. Yeah. And
it's a pretty easy install. I think it took like a couple hours when you did mine for my personal house, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you had an existing one, so we wouldn't have to run any new electrical or stuff like that. But if you're adding it brand new, you'd have to have considerations of does your electrical panel need to upgrade? Do you have enough space in the panel? Are you able to pull enough amperage? That's
a good point. You're not just adding air conditioning. You're adding, something that would require more electrical space in the panel. If it doesn't hold, if there's no more open space, they're going to have to upgrade that as well. So there's cost. Yeah. Okay, so let's say the panel's already fine and everything's there. Where would I assume?
Price-wise?
Price-wise.
High efficiency, you're looking at about 14 SEER. That's about standard now. You're looking at we're doing a customer on Monday. It's about 3,400.
Okay.
That's for a 2.5 ton system.
And that'll cool like 1,000 square feet?
Yes.
That's not bad. And I think right now, if you have air conditioning in an investment property, a lot of them don't. Most of them don't. In Cleveland, it's just not important. I know when I talk to my California investors, they're like, wait, you don't have air conditioning? We can't get it. There's no air conditioning. I'm like, okay, hold on. We don't need it here except, maybe 3 or 4 months out of the year. So it's not quite as important, but it is adding an additional amenity and additional value that the tenants really like. And I don't think at $3,400 that it's going to make or break the bank, and you would likely get that back in the additional rent you could charge from having it, So how long do these things typically last? A furnace, do I need another one in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years?
So I see a lot more frequently with the higher efficiency ones. They have a secondary heat exchanger. And if these aren't installed properly, level, and there's other considerations for draining and venting and stuff like that, those heat exchangers tend to rot out. And basically because they're very acidic, the flue gases, because it condenses a second time to cool the flue gases so that it can vent out of the PVC pipe instead of the chimney.
Okay. So how often would you have to replace it?
So I've seen them anywhere going like 12, 15 years, but they can be all the way to, 20 or more.
Yeah. What is the oldest furnace?
Like 10 to 15.
Really? What's the oldest furnace you've ever had to replace?
Up in the 40 years old.
Really?
40, 50.
Some of those big Cleveland furnace ones.
Big gravity ones.
Yeah.
With, the low boy with the huge return on the back.
Right.
Some don't have blowers. It's just a gas valve that opens and closes with a huge burner like this big.
Right. Right. All right. I'm going to talk about everyone's least favorite topic when they find it. Let's talk about boilers for a second. I know. I think most investors see a boiler like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Obviously in commercial multifamily, we see it a lot and it's just used to it. The problem is that a lot of these boilers are old. At least they look old, and maybe they're not serviced well. What is your 2 cents on that? And a lot of people are like, well, should I just change out the boiler to a furnace system? Do you think it makes sense to do that? Does it make sense to just kind of try to have it serviced? How often? Talk to me about boilers.
I would say, I guess it would all depend on how many units you have. But a lot of these larger buildings in Cleveland, they have to have a boiler system. They have no other option to do.
Is it because they, running the venting through the walls would just be too much, or why?
A little cost prohibitive.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Duct work, venting, electrical. Because you got 150 units. Yeah. You got 150 different electrical connections, 150 different series of duct work, stuff like that. But boilers. I like boilers a lot. There's 2 types of boilers: hot water boilers and steam boilers. Steam boilers, they require a lot more upkeep.
Okay.
And if you neglect it, you're going to have a lot of problems and a lot of expense.
Yeah. And I think that's the fear that most people have is, I have no idea how to take care of a steam boiler. I would just call you, to be honest. But so if a furnace is getting checked, maybe once or twice a year, how often should somebody be looking at a steam boiler?
I'd say once you have it under control, like once we come and assess it and we get it on a preventative maintenance plan and we get it kind of stabilized to, operating optimally, then, once, twice a year.
Okay. So similar in, having it serviced. So that's not too bad. Anything else people need to know about boilers? Like, how do I know the difference between a steam boiler and what was the other one?
Hot water boiler.
A hot water boiler.
So a hot water boiler, you'll see like a pump. You'll see a pump and that pumps the water. On a steam boiler, it just basically creates steam and the steam just travels up the pipe. You'll notice the steam boiler will have like a long glass tube on the side of it. And you'll see like a round glass, long tube. You'll see water in it. That's how you can tell it's a steam boiler.
Okay.
Also with the absence of the pump, you won't see a pump on that.
All right. And okay, so in the units, when you have boilers, you always have these like radiators down at the bottom. And A, they're hideous. B, like, where do you put your couch when it's like along the line? I feel like I wouldn't want to put my, furniture up against something that could cause a fire, and I'm putting it up against a thing that's causing heat. Is there an issue there? Like, what do you do? Or is there a new option for this?
So generally they have either a cast iron radiators or what they call slant fin, which is copper fins.
Yeah, I remember the old ones that were really tall, like have like 3 round things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they have like short, slim, slant fin.
Okay.
They call it like normally white.
Yeah,
like almost look like a baseboard.
Yeah.
That's pretty popular. And we get a lot of calls, especially from apartment buildings where they say they have no heat, and you find the couch up against it or clothes up against it, or actually there was a building where they just redid it and they installed all new carpeting, and the carpet installers actually tuck the carpet up behind the slant fin. So the slant fin, what it does is it kind of pulls air underneath.
Yeah.
And then the air comes back up and goes across that coil and comes out the top. So that's how you get the heat. If you're blocking the airflow at the bottom, the heat can't circulate.
So don't put your couches against them is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard because that's normally that's the longest wall that those are on. So
exactly.
It's kind of.
And so I walk in the units and it's scary. The other thing is that I see it all the time in apartment buildings. Like the front of those are missing. Like they've fallen down, like the little metal piece on the front of it. All the time. Like, is there like, can I call Home Depot? Can I buy this piece? Like, what do you have to do?
So we've replaced quite a few right now. Actually, we have a project. It was originally called Fairhill Towers, and now they call it Skyview Terrace.
Okay.
It's in Cleveland, but it's right there on Shaker Heights. It's 179 units. We're replacing all of the slant fin, all the sheet metal in the whole building.
So you're replacing the whole, like the slant fin, right?
Just the metal.
Just the metal on the front, the piece that falls off.
They're leaving all of the, the copper fin tube and stuff like that. But they're actually replacing that. We actually ordered that from the company.
Wow. And what does something like that cost?
You can get it like custom made. You can get it custom made, but it's even more expensive.
Yeah. What does something like that cost?
For a unit or like a whole building?
Do you know it broken down by unit? Otherwise, and again,
Depends on the size.
We don't know the size. So like this job right now, so it's 179 units. We don't know what size it is, but what is this?
So I
what does this CapEx
efficiency is about $600 to replace.
Just the metal on the front. Mm-hmm. Whew. That's crazy. Yeah. And how much would it be to replace the whole piece?
Well, then you'd have to shut the boiler down. That's the problem. Because you have to.
Because then every unit doesn't have heat.
Yeah. Because it's basically a loop. The hot water goes out and you have to complete the loop. You have to shut the boiler down, drain it.
Wow. So really your only option if you had a larger building is to do that, or to do it in the summer, I guess, maybe where you didn't have to have the heat.
Right.
But wow, that is a big, I've seen them and I was like, why don't anyone ever replace this? And that's probably why. That's a pretty large CapEx that really isn't going to give you a ton of return on your value, It doesn't stop a tenant from renting the space at least.
Right, because it looks brand new.
Right.
It looks brand new now. Nobody even notices.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you service boilers and furnaces. Tell everyone else a little bit about, what else do you do?
We do water heaters, residential and commercial. We do furnaces, air conditioners, boilers, geothermal units. Okay. We actually do oil furnaces.
Oil furnaces? Yeah. Where do you find an oil furnace at?
We just did one in LaGrange. Okay. We replaced an oil furnace and put in a heat pump for a customer in LaGrange. It's really far out, but we did.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
We do oil furnaces. We get calls in like Manaway and stuff like that too.
So you travel?
We travel. Wherever the work's at, we're there.
Right. I love it. Any tip or trick or 2 cents to throw out?
In general, I would service your equipment. If it's time to let it go, let it go.
Right.
Let it go.
Don't wait for it to die.
Everybody wants to hold on to it. And
then, don't wait for it to die.
And then they're calling 100 times like, hey, we need it replaced now, and we're busy.
Right.
So preventative maintenance, just be proactive.
Right. You know what? I have one more question because I'm personally going through this. We have 2 furnaces in my house, and it has the humidity thing on it. And I think our humidity thing is broken. And I only know this because we just installed these floors, and I feel like all the stuff in the middle of my hardwood floors is kind of pulled away. It's very dry in my house. It's very, very dry. How important? How do we even know? We don't have a humidity sensor. How do I even know? How does this get fixed? Is this my furnace? What is this?
You should have a humidistat.
Okay.
And it's got a little dial on it, and it senses the humidity. Basically, you would be able to turn it and hear when it clicks, and then you can look and see kind of where it's at. Generally, we keep it at 35.
Okay. And if it doesn't work, if it's not clicking,
then
I have to replace that, huh?
Yeah. There's also other stuff. There's a solenoid valve that lets the water come in to the humidifier. There's wiring to the furnace that could be an issue.
Now, is that a separate piece, or is that like I have to replace the furnace to replace the humidifier?
No, just the humidifier.
It's separate.
Parts. Yeah.
Right. Because I can't even, I never even thought about humidity. Like I don't pay attention to it. I don't think my last house, it was even an issue, but this house, I'm like, what in the world? And you've seen it, that I'm like, it's crazy. But it's something that people don't even think about. And when you look at them on the furnace, it looks like it's from 1970.
Oh yeah.
What is mine from 1970?
Your humidifier? I think
my house is built in the 70s. So
I think you do have an old humidifier. They do have newer ones. They look a little bit nicer.
I was going to say, they always look like that. They
generally look the same.
They just look like they're from 1970.
Yeah. There'll be a lot. The new ones are a lot smaller though. I think you have like a big yellow looking thing. I think they're a little bit smaller and they're white.
Right.
And very few issues normally with them.
All right.
Couple parts.
My last question for you is all these smart thermostats and all of that. We actually had an issue installing one of ours because of some wire, some G wire your furnace is supposed to have or something that I guess mine does not have. But what is your 2 cents? Have you found, Nest or any of these other ones to be better or worse than the others? Do you have a favorite?
Not really. I've seen them put in Nests or Ecobee or whatever. Yeah. And normally you need a C-wire, common wire.
C-wire, that's what it is, not a
G-wire. So
the
C-wire, the common wire, sends power from the furnace. That's how your thermostat gets powered. So if you don't have that extra wire, it can't be powered. You have to power it by batteries. They have like an adapter. You probably had an adapter.
That is not what I wanted to hear.
Well, you got to pull a new wire.
Oh man. Yeah, because we had Nest at our last house, and this house, we got the Amazon ones just because I love the ease of going, Alexa, turn it up a few degrees. But yeah, we don't have this C-wire. And so I'm like, what? We bought all the equipment and everything and we can't install it. So now we've got to figure out that piece, I guess. Now, do you think these smart thermostats would make sense for an investor? Is that a smart investment? Would it help most investors, I guess, aren't paying electric, but is there any opportunity, maybe on the boiler systems? Can you do it on a boiler system?
So what we've been installing on the hot water boiler system is a thermostat called a T10. It's made by Honeywell. And you can add room sensors, air sensors to that. You can add 20 sensors per thermostat. So if you have 20 units or less, we can actually take an average of each unit.
Oh, wow.
We can set the temperature of the space at 70, 72, 73, and then those sensors will send feedback to that thermostat and keep your space that same temperature.
That's huge because I can't tell you how many units I've walked in. One unit's a little chilly, but one unit's like 100 degrees in there. So this thermostat will take the average of all of them.
Yeah.
But you can't add like 2 of them to one boiler. If you had 40 units, you really can only do it for 20 units and less?
We could wire more thermostats in.
You could?
Yeah. You could wire more thermostats, add more sensors, just kind of daisy chain them together. So you could, if you were willing to pay that much.
I guess
and then your range too. I'm not 100% sure what your range is. Yeah. Because these sensors are wireless.
Okay.
So they have a wireless signal.
Okay.
We've put them in 4 stories before, and they connect.
That's awesome.
So I don't know how high you could go. I don't know if you go 8 stories, probably not. We'd have to check into that a little bit more.
But
crazy. These have been working great, and the investors have been really happy with it. Because they're saving a lot on gas.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet that saves them a lot of money just because you don't know the temperature. And I don't know what the average, where they're getting that reading or that temperature to keep it at. But yeah, it would save a lot of money. Now, how much is like one of those you want to install?
So you have to have, the way we're setting it up is there's already a system called a Tecmar boiler control. So this Tecmar is like a small computer system, and it basically takes the outdoor temperature and it takes the boiler supply temperature, and you set it based on, what your coldest temperature, your winter could be, -10, -20. So you set that on the computer, the control box, and then you set it to like, okay, do you have baseboard? Do you have radiators? What type of heating system, you have. And then it basically will tell you like 50 degrees outside, it might want to keep the boiler water at, 130, 120. So it can go anywhere between 0 degrees and, 180 degrees boiler water. So it basically saves energy, saves gas based on that computer algorithm.
Wow.
And then we take it a step further and wire those thermostats directly into that and control it strictly on temperature.
That's awesome. And now that if they were going to go and buy that piece, I'm sure there's a different installation cost if you're doing 20 sensors versus doing, one sensor. But what is the cost just for like the thermostat itself? What is it, a T10? T12?
Yeah, the T10. The thermostat itself is a little bit less than $300.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad, especially on the money you're going to save. I mean, that's probably at least first year savings.
Yeah.
I would guess that you could get back. Maybe you don't make a ton in first year, but you will after. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Why don't you tell everyone how they can get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of us at 330-883-2713. You can give us a call there, or you can email us. We're also on Facebook, 360 Heating and Cooling.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.